This is Democracy Watch. Marc, we have been hearing a lot about these fork in the road emails that federal employees, that's career civil servants are receiving, offering them a buyout basically so that they can self-select out of the government, and inevitably those people will be replaced by political appointees by Trump so that the workforce looks like a political arm of the White House. We now have an update as to whether those deferred resignations, they're called, can even move forward. Can you explain what just happened?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest news of the day. It may actually be the biggest news of the week when it comes to all of these cases. The big effort by Elon Musk and OMB and Donald Trump to empty out the federal government by giving these employees essentially a 7-month buyout where they get paid to resign from office or retire from government service. That would create a whole bunch of vacancies in the federal workforce that Donald Trump could then fill with his cronies and his supplicants. They had tried to jam this through with a February 6th deadline today, that basically people in the federal government either had to agree to do it or they would forfeit this sweetheart deal. And a federal judge blocked it, said, nope, today is not the deadline. This is going to be extended at least through Monday, when the court is going to have a federal hearing on whether this entire thing, even holds any water. But what it means is that you should not see this last minute surge of people who feel like they have to take this offer and thereby create a huge vacancy that Donald Trump would fill with his loyalists. So this is a big win for democracy. This is a big win for the people who brought this lawsuit. And as you have said in earlier videos, we got to savor the victories, when we have them.
Marc, what happens in the event that there are, I think, if reporting is correct, roughly 40,000 federal employees who have taken these deferred resignations, these buyout offers? What happens to those folks?
Yeah, I don't think we know. I mean, we're in uncharted territory here.
Right.
I mean, this whole program, this whole thing has a whole bunch of legal problems with it. First of all, the notion that without any congressional authorization,
right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, by virtue of the executive branch just deciding by fiat that these people can have 7-month buyouts, they don't have the authority to even do that. That would require an act of Congress to be able to somehow find 7 months worth of pay for all of these federal employees and approve it.
That's right. And of course, as you and I know, the government's only funded through March. Right. So there is no assurance to anyone. And I say this to people, the 40,000 people or anyone else, there's no assurance that the government can offer you right now of 7 months pay, because the government runs out of funds in the middle of March. And there will have to be a new bill, which, as you have pointed out, they are going to need Democratic votes for. They're not going to be able to. So this whole thing is premised on a whole lot of theories that may never come to pass. And so I don't know what happens to those 40,000 people, but what it does mean is that there will not be people pressured. There were not people pressured today to have to make this decision.
Wouldn't Democrats in Congress have a vested interest in ensuring that none of the funding, when they eventually do cross over and help Republicans pass some sort of bill, because they're going to need Democratic votes again to be able to do that, to make sure that there is no vehicle for Republicans to be able to offer these buyouts, knowing full well that these buyouts are basically just Trump's way to enact Schedule F within Project 2025 to hollow out the federal workforce so that those people can be replaced by Trump loyalists.
Yeah, it's a very interesting tactical decision that the White House has made here. Now, of course, sometimes I think we think they're playing chess when they're sort of playing tic-tac-toe and losing. But so I don't know how well thought out this was, but it is curious that they have done a number of these things, including this buyout, including the Doge Treasury Department stuff. They've done a whole bunch of stuff in advance of that March deadline, which, as you point out, they will need Democratic votes to pass that bill. And so that people understand why you and I keep saying that, there is only a 1-seat majority right now in the U.S. House for Republicans. Literally, they can afford to lose one person. And there are going to be at least a dozen, if not probably several dozen, Republicans who want the government shut down. So they won't vote for anything to keep it open.
Correct.
And so they're going to need Democratic votes. And so it is interesting that Donald Trump either allowed or encouraged or looked the other way or was unaware, who the hell knows, that his OMB and that Doge was out doing all this stuff. Because sure, it like has given a bit of a roadmap to Democrats and maybe some Republicans who care about democracy to say, okay, we now have a list of things, for this bill that need to be in it. Now, the other possibility is almost too dark to imagine, which is that Donald Trump's going to say, I don't care whether the government thinks it's run out of money or not. I'm just going to keep spending, and I'm going to decide that there is enough money. Maybe the people with access to the databases will just add a zero here or there.
Right.
I don't know what, but that will be a whole other level of constitutional crisis.
Marc, we have federal employees who watch this show. I know because I get emails from them. What would you say to those folks who right now are effectively serving as a bulwark against Trump's worst excesses, meaning once again, the federal government is hollowed out, those folks are going to get replaced by people who are going to be loyal not to the Constitution, not to the law, but to Trump himself. And so what do you say to those people whose presence is required in the government to keep it functioning as a nonpartisan entity, but who at the same time, I mean, look, you and I have the luxury of not having to work in hostile working environments where we're going to be monitored by bosses who want nothing more than to make sure that we're bending the knee to some avowed autocrat. So what do you say to those folks, knowing full well the difficult position that they're being put in?
Yeah, so I have a slightly different take on this than I think a lot of other people do. I wrote about this actually in a piece for Democracy Docket members this morning, that you gotta realize that, number one, we do want good people to stay in government. We do not want them to leave. We do not want to give Donald Trump the ability to replace good people with bad people. And so my first message is, don't give in and stay. But there is an asterisk to that, or there's a further clause to that, which is, as long as you are going to stay one of the good people. Right? Like, it is not, if ultimately people say, well, okay, I'm not going to give in, I'm going to stay, but I'm going to then execute all of the bad things that Donald Trump wants, then, like, honestly, you might as well just be one of the bad people, right? Like if you're going to do all of the terrible things, then there's really no point in compromising your conscience and your morals to do that. So it's a very hard thing to say in the abstract, because on the one hand, I want people to stay. I want people to be safe. I don't want people to be targeted. And that's one side. On the other hand, I don't want them to be in a competition for MAGA person of the year to keep their job. And so that is the balance. If you feel like you can be doing your job with good conscience, you should stay. If you feel like you can do your job with good conscience, even if you are having to make compromises, you should stay. If you feel like the only way to stay is to execute on a bunch of illegal or unconstitutional acts or to injure the people who need the protection of the government, then you're not doing yourself a favor, by staying, and you're really not doing anything more than what someone else would do. So in that sense, I would say probably don't stay. But again, this is easy advice for you to give. It's easy advice for me to give. We don't have to make those day-to-day judgments. And I do want to say I have sympathy and grace for the people who are put in those positions. So I don't want it to sound like it's quite a bright line, because I know it's not. But that's kind of my take on it.
Well, I know that there are also class action lawsuits for folks who are being wrongly terminated. And, insofar as I can offer any unsolicited advice, I know that those are happening, and would highly recommend that for people who are career civil servants who have these protections to go and be a part of these class action lawsuits and fight back against Trump's efforts to, again, enact Schedule F, to remake the government in the mold of just an extension of his White House. There are avenues to do that. We're seeing that right now with these FBI agents who are banding together and getting these cases in the courts right now. And the courts, as we know, are serving as a pretty effective bulwark against Trump's worst excesses right now. That's something that you've been speaking about quite a bit, Marc, on Democracy Docket. Highly recommend for anybody watching right now to support Marc and his team and their invaluable work. Please make sure to sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right here up on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.